Ever pinch pennies all year for that one family vacation only to feel the budget blues afterwards? If so, I was just like you. After 3 vacationless years, I stumbled on credit card rewards travel and cracked the code to amazing vacations that I could actually afford.
Welcome to Wonderland on Points. In this podcast, you will discover how opening credit cards strategically can save you thousands on travel. We're not just dreamers anymore. We're 2 adventurous moms turning dreams into reality. Join us as we spill all the points and miles secrets.
And contrary to popular belief, you don't have to spend $1 million to earn 1,000,000 points. Traveling on credit card points isn't reserved for those with overflowing bank accounts. It's for everyday people like you and me, learning to turn routine expenses into free travel.
Consider us your points travel guides. This is Wonderland on Points. Let the adventure begin. Happy October, everyone. We are still in the most beautiful month of the year, and we're so glad that you are here with us. I hope that the setting all around you is reaching peak beauty with the leaves. How is it in St. Louis, Joanna?
You know, I'm looking at my window right now. It's still pretty green, but it has weirdly shifted from like 90-degree days to 60-degree days to like being in the 40s, low 40s at night. And
So it's coming.
well, I feel like we skipped fall. I have to be honest. It's very
Went too
cold.
far.
Too far. Where was my middle? Where were my low 70s? Where is it? Why did we skip straight to freezing cold? I need an actual coat. And I don't know where mine is. So I've been wearing my daughter's coat that she will never wear because what middle schooler wears a coat?
Oh gosh, yeah, it's obsolete. There's no coats in middle school.
There's no coats. These kids, I see them at the bus stop on my way to work in the morning in shorts and t-shirts. It's 40 degrees. It's insanity. But I am pretty excited to be talking with Angie today about Greece because as I sit here freezing in my house right now, I can think of nothing better than being in beautiful, warm, sunny Greece. Oh, so
Santorini.
exciting.
Can you see
Yes.
yourself diving into the water, splashing through?
I have to say I'm not a graceful diver, so no, but I will jump. I can see myself jumping into the water.
And I can record you jumping into the water and hopefully get some footage.
Let's go. Let's go to Greece.
I think everyone is going to be inspired to go to Greece after you hear our interview with Angie today. So we're going to get into that. Angie is a Dallas girl. She's a mom of 4, and you're really going to love hearing about her trip to Greece. But before we do, I've got to admit something, Joe. I feel like as many times as I say, don't sleep on the offers, Chase offers and Amex offers, don't sleep on the offers, which is still true, I found myself sleeping on some offers.
Uh-oh.
Yes.
This is like your thing. How could
I
you?
know. I was thrilled to realize that there was a whole bank of offers that I was missing out on because I recently got a City AA Advantage card, trying to get myself some American Airlines points. I got a good sign-up bonus that I'm working on, but I really just started digging into the City app. And they have offers set up the same way that Chase and Amex do that you can enroll in to add to your card. And there's some fun stuff. There's 3% back at Instacart, 3% back at Walmart. There's some really great meal kit ones that I'm hoping to combine, do a stack on. Listen to this. There's a $20 back on a HelloFresh kit. It says purchase of 35 or more. $20 back on 35 or more.
When I've done the brand new HelloFresh through the AA portal, I spent about $35 on my first box, and that was at a time they were offering 5,000 points. So what I just heard you say there is for $15, you can get food for, well, this was a 2-person meal box that I got, but food for 2 people for the week and 5,000 American Airlines points. That's what I just heard. Is that what you said?
That is correct. They also have a Green Chef one that's $25 back on a $35 purchase. I mean, those are really great offers. So I feel bad that I've been sleeping on the city offers. I will not anymore. And I plan to cash in on some of those in the near future. I've already done a couple with Instacart and Walmart. Those were small, but I'm going to do some of the bigger meal kit ones too. So, hey, look at them all. Capital One's is more of a shopping portal. It's not
Yeah.
so much offers that you attach to your card that you
Yep.
can stack with another shopping portal, because theirs is a shopping portal. So I don't love that.
And this reminds me, guys, I discovered that you can put Rakuten and the Capital One shopping portal. I don't even know, maybe even American Airlines haven't tested that yet, but you can attach them to your Safari browser in your iPhone. Okay, it's a little complicated. Maybe I'll make a reel walking everybody through it. When I downloaded the Capital One shopping portal, it said, hey, did you know you can add me to the Safari browser on your iPhone? And it walked me through the steps. And I was like, no, I didn't. So
that's great.
Yeah, it's amazing because I do everything from my phone, which is why I feel like I miss things a lot. So anyways, don't sleep on that. Don't sleep on the city offers, and don't sleep through this episode about Greece with our friend Angie's Travel Tips. You're gonna love it.
Welcome, Angie. We are so glad to have you here today. Tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and the makeup of your family, the travelers that you have in your life.
So I actually grew up the daughter of a pilot. So I've been in planes my whole life. He had a little Cessna and we flew all the time. And so I've always been traveling and I've always loved air travel till I didn't. But I have 4 kids, and you lose flight benefits when you get married, or back in the 2000s, it was 24. I don't know what it is now, but you lose your flight benefits. So during my 20s, I know. And my grandparents have them for life. I don't know.
Wait, kind of like insurance, like you can be on your parents' insurance till you're 26 and then they're like, bye. That's rude.
Like right when you're old enough to do fun things and you get the boot.
Interesting.
That's dumb. I hate
lost
that.
those. I know. And you don't even know how lucky you are when you're a teenager. No, you don't really go anywhere that cool when you're a teenager. So while it was fun and we'd pop around with him, we didn't do all that many big things. We just went around to the US and to see family or to little things. But I didn't really use my flight benefits because I didn't have the money and I wasn't old enough. So by the time I could have, and I got married when I was 24, I lost my flight benefits. So I spent my 20s spending a lot of money on travel that now in my 30s, you learn better and do better. And I have 4 kids and it's expensive to travel. So I was kind of determined to figure out how to do it for less. So that's kind of what led me to finding points and miles. My sister really was the one that taught me.
That's
because
awesome.
I went on a very expensive vacation and she took her family to France for almost free. And I was like,
I'm sorry, what? Excuse me, sister?
I just dropped $9,000 on a cruise or whatever we did, and she was under 100. And I was like, what? So
the
anyway,
amount of time that I think back through my 20s and I'm like, I could have been doing so much. I don't understand how I literally got to 30 years old without hearing about any of this stuff. I mean, how does not everybody know? And the amount of people that are hard to convince that this is a good idea is also mind-blowing. I have a best friend who's just like, I'll just pay a travel agent and it's fine. Okay.
Right?
All right. But your page specifically, I feel like is such a good place for maybe people who just know nothing about it, because you have so many just little bite-sized quick tips, and then you direct people to your longer content that's so helpful. I feel like every post has something to learn, and I love that.
Nice.
I love that about an Instagram. So when did you decide you wanted to transition from just I know this, I'm doing this, to I really want to help people?
I think it really stemmed from my family being like, I don't want to hear about this anymore. You are so annoying. And we hear you that you are traveling. And so I really have always liked content creation, not necessarily in the social media space, but back when Pinterest came out, years ago, digital media and stuff like that. I've always loved it. And so I seriously can't remember what I all of a sudden thought, I'm going to start an Instagram page about this. But really it was just an outlet almost to be able to I would vomit all of my favorite cool things I was learning. There's just an infinite amount of information. And so that's kind of where it started, was I was like, well, that's it. Then I'm just going to share all my things here. And then the people that want to listen will want to hang out and be on my club.
Yeah.
And why we have a podcast. Yeah.
Right?
People were like, shut up. And we were like, okay, we'll go tell the people who actually want to know. And it's great
genius.
for those of us that love to chatter, which is me. And especially about points and miles, I could go wherever. And people don't like that.
Totally.
And it sounds like that's how you feel specifically about Greece, too, when we were talking a little bit about this. So we are going to dig into your recent trip to Greece on points and miles. And I am so excited about it. So if you just want to give us like a little overview and then maybe we'll dig into some specifics, I think that would be a great place to start.
Yeah, Greece has always been on my list since I was little. My grandparents went and brought me back like a cute medallion of like the Acropolis. And I remember always being kind of enamored with Greek mythology.
Yes.
And I don't know, it's always been tippity top. And we've been to Europe a few times and been to other places, South America, but Greece is pretty far. And we live in Dallas and there's not a direct flight. And it just is like just far enough past Europe that I was like, oh, this is like a more involved trip than just like a quick 8-hour flight. It's more like 11 and some change because you have to take multiple flights, right? I'm not sure why this year I was like, that's it. I just am like, I'm going to start checking off my bucket list items. And it ended up being a lot easier than I thought it would be. And easier to get to than I thought it would, actually. As far as an overview goes, I mean, when I say, you guys probably know, when you go to plan a bigger trip, it's like hours of trying to figure out, especially if you're using points and miles and doing multiple locations. And some of those locations include points and miles in hotel spaces. It was like hours. Mm-hmm. And I was just like,
it's a puzzle,
oh my gosh.
for sure. It's a huge, complicated puzzle. But that's part of the fun of it. I mean,
I love it. Yeah. I love it. But the point is, it was like a lot of moving pieces that came together, and it was the best. I think it was probably our favorite trip we've ever taken, for sure. Like the best food, the best experience. And like a lot of it exceeded our expectations, even though we knew it was going to be good, you know?
That's huge. That's a mark of a great trip because you build it up for, a year. You're planning this. You're reading about it all the time. You're seeing the polished pictures online, right? The ones the best pictures that people put out. And then when you get there, so often, it's almost like a letdown. And so that's great that it was even better than you guys thought. Where did you end up flying out of and into? So from the US, where'd you fly in?
So we wanted to fly business. So that kind of narrows down your like options as far, well, not really. If you have all the money in the world, you can go wherever you want. But I wanted specific like price points, right? So on the way there, we took a positioning flight to Atlanta. And that was like 8,000 on Delta, 8,000 points-ish. And then we flew Turkish business class, which was fantastic. And via Istanbul to Athens. At the time, Turkish allowed you to do both legs for the same price, both in business. Now, I'm pretty sure if it hasn't already expired, they are getting rid of that policy and having you pay for individual legs. So we were able to get in business all the way to Athens via Istanbul for 45,000 points.
That is so good.
It was ridiculous. And then we actually did, you guys might know this, but if you fly on Turkish, they have a program called Tour Istanbul. Do you know about this?
I have heard of it. I have. So please tell our listeners. Yes.
Yeah. So Turkish Airlines has a program that if you fly on their airline, they will allow you to take a tour or have a free hotel stay overnight if your layover is longer than 6 hours, between 6 and 24 hours. So stopovers don't work, but like a longer layover is like their window. So I opted for a long layover that still continued me over to Greece for that price point.
Yes.
And I think we landed at 3 and we left for Greece the next morning at 7. So we had like a tight window. And the only tour left, we decided to do the tour and then book a cheap Hilton, which was like 5,000 points down the street. We toured the Bosphorus Strait, the river. And so they literally take you from the airport and down and take you to dinner. And then you did like a dinner cruise on the Bosphorus, and you can see, because Istanbul, I didn't know, was separated. It's separated by the Bosphorus Strait. One side is Asia, one side is Europe, both Istanbul.
Wow. Is that a perk of business class flights, or is that anyone who uses Turkish Airlines and stops over in Istanbul?
Anyone.
Wow, very neat.
Yeah. I would say the only user unfriendly part of it was that you can't like book it ahead of time. You literally have to get off your flight, go to the Tour Istanbul desk and get you like a little, like a lanyard but it didn't seem complicated. I didn't see anybody not getting on a tour, so they must just do it so often. But I thought, but coming from here, I was like, what do you mean you just go find a desk? Like, just like hope? I'm like trying to get to another country. And it ended up being great and much more easy than I thought it would be. So that was fun. So then that airport is a little, I think, kind of complicated. The signage isn't great. So we spent a lot of time once they dropped us back off trying to figure out how to get to our Hilton. And it was like 2 a.m. So we ended up just sleeping in the business class lounge because we were like, our flight leaves in 5 hours and I don't want to go all the way and back. And so made one mistake there. But other than that, it was just so awesome.
Really what awesome. Did you do with your bags during that time?
So we went to the lounge and they have luggage storage there.
Perfect. That's amazing. Yeah. And it was just the lounge because you were flying business class, not a credit card lounge.
Yeah.
Okay.
They also have luggage storage right next to Tour Istanbul. And I want to say it's like $20 in Istanbul for like 24 hours or something. And it's right next door. So if you don't have lounge access, there's luggage storage too.
That's perfect. Absolutely amazing. Okay. So that's so fun. And you maybe lost 5,000 points, but it's not the end of the world. Also, if it was Hilton, were they transferred from your Amex? So it was really actually only, 2,500 points?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So, and they refunded them. I called them and told them that like we don't have time to come in, and they were sweet and refunded them. So it was a biggie.
That's amazing. Awesome. Okay. So not even really a mistake then. Nothing lost.
Well, and a great tip to our listeners. They lost the sleep over. But that's a great tip is don't just think, oh, all is lost, whatever. I lost it. Hey, give them the call, shoot the email. You never know. Maybe they will refund you the points. I love it.
I always fight for my points. Like if something doesn't work out, often, actually, I would say more often than not, they kick them back. They're nice. They want you to come back. They want your business.
Yes.
And every once in a while, they will be stinkers. But in general, I've always been able to kind of get a refund and they're pretty good about it.
I love it. All right. So we're now 7 a.m. the following morning headed to Athens.
Yes. And this flight was on like an older Turkish Airlines business class product, and I still loved it. It was fantastic. The food was so good. They have like a chef on board. It was next level.
Even that short flight from Istanbul
they made us like
to Athens?
breakfast, and like it was just awesome. Yeah, they just treat you like you're the gift to them. It's just, and they're so nice, and like, and what's interesting is because it's a Muslim country, right? So they have like prayer time in the corner of the screen. So like it's reminding all of the people on there, which I thought was really sweet because you're in the air. You don't know what time it is when prayer time is. And it was, I don't know, a super, super respectful culture. I loved it.
That's amazing. That's so fun. I've heard lots of good things about Turkish, but I'm not sure we've had anyone on talking about their experience on Turkish before. So it's nice to hear that it was even the short leg. How long is that flight from Istanbul to Athens?
It's like an hour and 15 minutes.
Oh my gosh. Fast. And still a chef on board for that. That's amazing.
Yeah. Making breakfast. It was super nice. The flight Atlanta to Istanbul, I think was 11.
Okay. Ooh, that's quite a distance. So you get into Athens. I've never gone that far. So I'm sure your body is just discombobulated and you haven't slept. Do you hit the ground running for your day? Do you meander around? What do you do? Because you can't probably check into your hotel that early. Walk us through that first day there.
Yeah. So the Athens airport is about 45 minutes to an hour from the city, from like the city center of the Acropolis. The city kind of surrounds it. It's on the coast. And there's a train, and I want to say it's like €9. If you want to take the train, it's about an hour, or an Uber, I think was like €30. And we decided to take an Uber because the train station was a good 20-minute walk from our hotel, and we were wiped. Normally I'm like all about the walking, and I knew we were going to be hitting like 25,000 steps a day, but we had been up all night long and we had our bags, and we were like, you know what, like, let's just go straight. And they drop you off right in front. So we did Uber that time. But the train's a great option from what I've read. And it was in my plan originally to just take that like quick shuttle over. And then we stayed at A77 Suites in Athens, which is right in a little pocket of Athens called Plaka, which is really cute. I think it's the cutest part of Athens. Most people that have been there will say it's like the best shopping, really Cycladic, the white architecture and the beautiful bougainvillea flowers and stuff like that. And it's maybe 10 minutes from the Acropolis. And most of the time you can see it because the Acropolis is raised up high and kind of looks over the city. It's
amazing.
Awesome. I know.
What brand is that hotel?
It was a Hyatt, and we were one of the last people to stay there. It is a Hyatt redemption. Now it's Hilton, I think, because it's a small luxury hotel.
Yeah.
So, but some of them have not transferred over to Hilton. Like we stayed at another one later in Greece that we can talk about. And for some reason, it's not popping up on Hilton, and I don't know why. But yeah, so it's not part of the Hyatt portfolio anymore.
So
but it
sad.
was, and it was like 17,000 points a night, and it was so cute. It was an actual boutique hotel where you walk into a boutique like a speakeasy, and all of a sudden they like open these doors and it's like a hotel.
Stop.
Yeah, really cute, and they like make you a little boxed lunch in the morning. It was really cute, really cute.
Oh my gosh, what a dream!
Yeah, yeah. So I honestly, I haven't looked at the redemptions like because Hilton it varies throughout the year. So I don't know what their price is, but it was nice enough that I'm like, I would totally stay there again. It was so cute. Fantastic location.
You guys hopped around. You didn't stay in Athens. You enjoyed Athens, but your itinerary was pretty, I mean, you hopped to what, 5 different cities while you were there?
Let's see. We did Athens, and then we did 3 islands. We took a day trip from Athens up to a town. So I guess 5. I guess that's right. It doesn't feel like that, but I guess that's probably accurate. So we just did one day trip up to some monasteries that were really cool.
I saw your videos on Instagram with those monasteries. That looked just totally incredible. Like there's no words. I don't even know that I have the words.
No, I don't even know if I've recovered yet. It was unbelievable. And we kind of went on a whim because we had 3 days in Athens and we had been told 2 days is plenty, which is accurate. And so we had this extra day. I didn't want our points were non-refundable because they were no longer a Hyatt partner. So Hyatt was like too bad. So I was like, well, we're not going to double up and stay somewhere else or go somewhere else. So I'm like, let's rent a car. So we rented a car for the day and drove up, which was far, like 4 hours. And we just looked at it as like a day adventure. And and we just kind of meandered and poked around. I don't know. I've never been inland in Greece, and it was unbelievable. Like I was like, are we on Earth still? Like, is this Earth still? It looked like another planet. It was really cool.
The landscape, it was like lush mountains, right?
Oh, these massive mountains, these big rocks. And then there's 6 monasteries that are built on top of these hundreds and hundreds of feet up. I know everyone I've talked to, I'm like, Google it. I'm not even going to do it justice. Google Meteora monasteries. It looks just like that in person. Worth the 8 hours and 1 day driving. It was really cool.
I love when a spur of the moment thing turns into a highlight. Like that is so exciting. I also want to talk a little bit about what it was like to just kind of rent a car spur of the moment in Greece. But first, I did look up that hotel on Hilton. They start at 80,000 points a night for our standard room and goes up from there. So 40,000 transferred from Amex. It's pretty high, but sounds like it's worth it.
Especially if they just got done doing a transfer bonus. If you can catch a transfer bonus, I would do that in 2 shakes. It was so nice, so cute, so clean, great location. You literally walk out the doors and you're on the best shopping street in Greece, in Athens. And Athens is massive. There's like millions of people in the city. I had no idea how big it was. And so if you can catch a transfer bonus, I would do it again. It was really good. I don't feel like there's great options, honestly, for points and miles right in Athens. The Hyatt one is like far. It's not super close.
Yeah, the second hotel that's listed in Athens, the Isla Brown Corinthia Resort and Spa, which starts at 45,000 points a night, is 31 miles away from the city.
Yeah.
That is like the next closest, it looks like. So sounds like you're going to have to maybe spend a little bit more for that in the city experience, but also sounds totally worth it.
Yeah. So it was really fantastic. I loved it.
That's amazing.
When you rented a car, did you use Capital One miles to erase that purchase, or were you able to do any kind of finagling to make that more affordable?
I didn't. It was $90 for the day. You could.
Oh, not bad.
I probably used my Bilt card most likely because I've been like really obsessed with my Bilt card lately. But you could for sure. There's some, as you know, like there's some things that we sort of like commit to making like earners versus burners.
Yes.
And I don't find, unless a car is way out of my price range, I feel like it's not the best redemption of Capital One points. I feel like I get more value out of business class flights, for example, which is how I used my Capital One points for my flights to Turkey. technically Athens. And that was like, $4,000 flight for 45,000 points. So I don't. You typically use points for rental cars, but you can.
Absolutely. Was it easy to do that spur of the moment?
Yeah. Yeah. I if I'm in a country I don't know, I typically try to rent from companies I'm familiar with because car rentals overseas can get real dicey real quick. And even doing that, we had a couple of experiences where I was like, ooh, okay, that was not fine. So we went with Sixt, which is a well-known European rental company. Walked over there. It was a long wait because there were other people in line, which is annoying, but that happens. But other than that, they literally pulled it up and we left and it was great. And I always take a video of my car if I'm in Europe.
Yes,
make sure you get a pre-video because you just never know. We've heard horror. It's never happened to me. I've always had a decent experience with rental car companies that way as far as claiming damage. But I always do it just in case, just to make sure. But no, it's easy. Super easy.
Good. How did you get, so you spent 3 days in Athens, 2 in Athens, 1 to the monasteries, and then you said you island hopped a bit. So how did you go from Athens to the islands?
There's like 1,600 islands in Greece. So trying to narrow down where you want to go can be hard. Yeah, is massive. It's a huge country.
Corfu. Because I watched a show that took place in Corfu. That's it. That's the one I know.
I watched the girls because
are you a masterpiece theater person?
I so am. And I loved that show. I've told so many people, I'm like, that show is the sweetest. It just makes you happy and peaceful.
And it's a true story. And there are books too. It's that's kind of what started my obsession with Greece. So anyway, did you go there or was that not one of the islands you went to?
No, because it was kind of far and I was kind of sad I didn't go. But it's on my list to go next time. Plus it's a stop on quite a few cruises. So I thought, well, next time if I ever do like a Mediterranean cruise, you can at least pop in and see it.
Yeah.
Because the more research at the hours, right? The more research I did, the more I was like, Corfu looks awesome. These look stunning. I don't know how often I'm going to get over here. So I didn't go. But I wish I would have. But yeah, so there's thousands of islands. There's tons and tons of places to go. So we started with Santorini because it was the furthest south island. And I was going to kind of like work our way back toward Athens because I knew that we would have to leave out of Athens. And we flew. We flew to Santorini because the ferry was long and about the same price. And so, and the ferries can be kind of unpredictable. In fact, one of my friends, I don't know if you follow her. Do you guys follow Holly on Mostly Free Travel?
Oh, no, but we're going to put her on our list. We almost never hear of people we don't know about. So yes, she's your shout out.
I love her so much. She's in Greece right now and she is like stuck. She can't get to Milos because the ferry is canceled and it's too windy.
Oh no.
So I know. So I was like, I can't have that happen because we basically planned most of our itinerary around the fact that I found availability at Canavesia, which is like
everyone talks about it. Yep.
It's like a very aspirational redemption, which was with Hyatt, now with Hilton, same thing. And again, we were one of the last people to stay as a Hyatt customer. But when that availability came up, I literally planned our whole itinerary kind of around these 2 days that were available because it's like $2,000 a night. And I was like, well, we need to go there. So that's kind of how we settled on starting with Santorini also.
Yeah.
From there, we ferried and then flew our last leg to make sure we got there because we had connecting flights. But
what are the companies that do these flights?
So Aegean is the Greece airline. It doesn't do a lot of international flights. It's not very big, which is why it can be complicated to get to Greece sometimes. Like we have 4 at least major airlines in our country, right? That go international, where Greece has this main one. There might be a couple smaller ones and they pop around. And so Aegean's one of them. Sky Express is another one. They have Olympic, I think is what it's called. There's a couple just like commuter smaller airlines that pop around on the islands. But I learned that the transportation in Greece can be complicated because there's so many islands and there's only, obviously you can't drive.
Yeah.
And the train system in other parts of Europe is fantastic because it's one chunk of space that you're going around. Where Greece is broken up with all these spots. So
what are the cash rates like for those short flights?
Let's see. I think our one to Santorini was like $80, I want to say.
Okay.
So not terrible. I felt like the fast ferry, which is like 3 hours, I think, was about the same.
Okay.
But the smaller islands that don't have a lot of ferry access are expensive. So when we flew home from Milos, or flew to Athens, from Milos, it was like $180 a person. It was expensive.
Yeah.
And most of those airlines don't have partnerships. So you can't use points and miles.
Right.
So that was kind of an annoying surprise. But at the same time, it was my favorite island. So I'd probably pay double now that I've been there.
Yeah. And you know what? That's why we offset with points and miles elsewhere. So we can do stuff like that. And that's amazing.
Yeah.
So I guess talk to us about your time in Santorini. The hotel, the food, the experiences, everything.
Santorini, I kind of wondered if it would be like overblown or something, or like not. I don't know, because everybody talks about it. It's like so quintessential. Like, is it going to be like, will it? I don't know. It was fantastic. I'm kind of a nerd, like a geology nerd. So the fact that it was like an actual crater was just crazy to see, because a lot of this, the two main villages are Theta and Ia. One's on the north, one's on the south. And they sit on this cusp of a caldera looking over this massive caldera, right? And it's shaped like a moon, like this. So that alone, like just the view and being in one of like 5 super calderas in the world was super cool for a geek like myself.
Yeah.
And it was just as beautiful as you hope. The views were just as incredible as you hope. Like the cruise ships down below look like this big, and there's like 4 or 5 at a time sitting down there. Because we only had those 2 nights available at the Canaves Ia in Ia, since the name. We were there for 3 days. So the first night we stayed at a Marriott in a little town called Megalochori.
Oh,
so cute. Loved it. We used Marriott points to stay there. It's expensive. I want to say it was like 60,000 points, but my husband travels for work, so we have a slew of those. I think the cash price on it was maybe around 300. And again, now having been, I'm like, take my money. It was so beautiful, and they were so nice, and the pools were nice, and like it was across a tiny little cobblestone alleyway from a classic blue dome.
Oh my gosh.
You could stand on the roof of the hotel and look at this blue dome with the sunset behind it. So it was really cool. So we did one night quickly there, rented a car, because we were going to go all over the island. We mostly rented cars on the island. And I'm glad I did that instead of like a moped. After having been there, because it was hot. It was hot.
Yeah.
It was warm.
I was going to ask you, we should have asked you at the top, Angie, what time of year did you go? And follow up to that, was it too people-y? Was it super people-y?
I haven't been to Greece before. This was my first time. So I guess I don't know what to compare to other than my other experiences in other countries that tend to be busy sometimes, like other parts of Europe, Italy, whatever. We went the last week of August, first week of September, and which is like the very beginning of shoulder season, when it starts to slow down, get a little cheaper, a little less hot. And the only time I ever felt like it was people-y was when the cruise ships had all their people get off onto Santorini by like 10 a.m. They literally funnel into Ia by like I don't know if thousands, it felt like thousands. Like you were shoulder to shoulder in the alleyways. So if you can get around those time frames, other than that, I felt like it was great. I rarely ever felt, trying to think like through my time there, if I ever felt like, oh, this is crowded.
Hey guys, we're going to get right back to the rest of this episode, but before we do, we have a request.
Look, if you've ever gotten any value from this show and you want it to continue to grow and to continue to serve you and have access to knowledgeable guests, if you could leave us a rating and a review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, that would be completely amazing.
These ratings and reviews go such a long way into attracting new podcast listeners and helping us bring guests on the show. It makes us so excited to hear how we are helping all of you reach your travel goals.
It really does. And if you're feeling up to it, take a screenshot of your review after you post it and share it to your own Instagram. And don't forget to tag us at Wonderland on Points Podcast. We would love to reshare it in our own stories.
Yes, we sure would. And if you haven't already, go ahead and leave that rating and a review right now. Okay, let's get back to the show.
It was great.
Because the cruise ship guests all go back to the cruise ship after a certain amount of time. They're just there for a certain number of hours, kind of wandering the island.
Yeah, and most of the time they don't have a car. So they're in like the very touristy spots, seeing the blue domes, going on a couple of the excursions out to like the middle of the volcano-ish area because there's still some active parts of the volcano, even though it's dormant. So you can see the steam. So they go see that. And those get busy, I guess. But Ia for sure gets busy during the day. It does.
Okay, that's very good to know. I want to let our listeners know that hotel now through Hilton starts at 140,000 points a night. So again, 70,000 transferred from Amex. If there's a transfer bonus, you could probably bring it down a little. There are quite a few hotels listed in Santorini, and the lowest redemption I'm seeing starts at 53,000 a night. I'm sure it's nothing like that hotel, but options. So just so everybody knows, if you're trying to plan your own trip, I like to give numbers if I can.
Totally. Well, in 53, that's what, 26 and a half-ish from Amex. That's a great redemption, I think, in a place like Santorini. And as nice as Canavese EO was, like it was next level service and we had our own pool. It was like, maybe a once in a lifetime experience. And they upgraded us because there was kind of it was midweek.
That's awesome.
But I honestly, like, it was so beautiful, but also like, I don't think I would pay above 45,000 points a night for it because you're out seeing stuff anyway. We felt this like pressure to go back and like spend time in it because it was such a killer redemption, but Santorini is so cool to see. So we felt this tug and pull kind of like, oh my gosh, they gave this incredible space and we're like not there.
I always feel that. Yeah, unless I'm staying at an all-inclusive, I'm willing to pay more points because you're kind of at the hotel on the property at all times. But when I go to New York City, when I go to all kinds of tourist destinations that I know I'm going to be out and about, it's really hard for me to splurge on the higher price hotels.
Totally. I totally agree. So, which I guess is my point. Like I would pick Santorini is so cool and most of it is not involved in like resortscape as far as experiencing the island goes. I would just pick the cheapest one that looks beautiful and it would probably be awesome. We didn't see like pockets of Santorini that weren't nice or wouldn't be like cool to stay in,
Yeah. That makes total sense. Did you get upgraded because you are a globalist or did you ask for the upgrade? What's your Hyatt status situation?
We are almost globalist. We're Marriott people for the most part because my husband travels. And so we just are like by default. I mean, I love Marriott. Don't get me wrong. I love them so much. I actually think their brand is my favorite. I feel like they're consistently a little more luxurious and I love them. But obviously you cannot be in this hobby and not be a Hyatt fan. You just can't. Their redemptions are bar none. They're ridiculously awesome. Our Explorers will be globalist probably the next couple weeks.
That's exciting.
But I know
it's a huge milestone.
I should mention this. My husband, so other people should do this. So they actually have a corporate matching program and my husband submitted his corporate email on their website and they gave him complimentary Explorist with the option to stay 10 nights in the next 90 days to keep it or 20 nights to get globalist through 2026, like March or something like that. And I didn't even know about that. I knew that they do all kinds of challenges through other methods or whatever.
Yeah.
But this one was easier because you can achieve globalist instead of just whatever they're offering you. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, and I don't know the exact website, but I'm sure if you Google like corporate Hyatt match, something will come up and then you just enter your email and it will tell you right then and there if you qualify for the status match, which is cool.
So at the time you did not have status and they just upgraded you because it was slow and you were, did you write an email, use a template, or it just happened when you checked in?
No, I emailed them ahead. In fact, I email most hotels before I go just in case. Sometimes if we have status, I'll just like mention that. Or if it's a special occasion, then I'll mention that. Sometimes even because I have an Instagram account, I'll be like, hey, I'm coming in and I'm taking footage just so you know if there's something interesting that you want in whatever. I show my small audience, like I'm coming in if you have anything upgrade wise. Sometimes they will upgrade me because of that as well. But there's plenty of people that get upgrades without some type of Instagram going on. And I don't even have a template, honestly. I kind of, depending on what the resort is that I'm emailing, I kind of just highlight what I love about it and make sure you add your confirmation number that I already had booked, right? I've already paid for it. I just am looking for something better. And then your loyalty number and explain what you're, and most people have been able to get upgrades that way. But that's what I did ahead of time.
Perfect.
We're doing it. We're doing it, Joe. Next podcast retreat. We're going to work
hard. I just did it last
birthday.
week.
Exactly.
Yep. We're going to the Park Hyatt St. Kitts for Mary Ellen's 40th.
Yes, that's on my list. I want to hear about it.
It's gonna be amazing. I'm so excited.
We are thrilled.
It's going to be fun.
Angie, tell us some of the activities on the islands that you just loved. Like, what are the swimming holes that were to die for? Tell us all those kind of fun activities.
Let's see. There were so many. So I'm trying to think like my favorite ones. Like as I kind of thought about this question, I was like, ooh, how do I narrow it down? And I was asking my husband because he's just a lap dog is what he is. He doesn't even know what we're going to do. Like everything was a big surprise to that guy. He's like, oh my gosh, I had no idea that Greece looks like this. Oh my gosh, I had no idea Santorini was a volcano. He's hilarious. So I was asking him, like, as someone who didn't plan it, like, what were your favorite things? And I would say on Santorini, you can hike from that southern town called Fira along the caldera to Ia. It's a super famous hike. Hike is a stretch. Like there's some uphill, some downhill.
Okay.
It's more like a trail walk with a few inclines and declines. Awesome. So awesome.
Okay.
So cool. Loved it. Free. So cool.
Is it one of those hikes where there's views the whole way? Like the payoff, you don't just have to wait for the payoff at one point because the whole walk is just so beautiful?
Totally. Yeah. I would say 90% of it, you're on the edge of this caldera looking out over the views. And then the other time you're looking, the other direction, it's some cute town in the distance or whatever, but you're kind of up on this ridge almost the whole way. Some of it you're navigating through little towns and they have these like hand painted terrible signs that are like, yeah, this way. And you're like, I hope that's right. I'm just going to go that way. But other than that, it was just the whole time I was like, oh my gosh. My husband's like, keep going. We got 6 miles.
That sounds like a very familiar dynamic to me. That's how it is in my relationship as well.
Yeah. Okay. Santorini. And then my other favorite, let's see. We went to Paros next for a few days. We didn't do any heavy excursions there. We really wanted to just like hang out and wander. I almost didn't even make a itinerary, which is not like me. I love like planning fun things, but I knew this place was fun to walk. So we didn't do a ton of outdoorsy big activities there. We just wandered and it was awesome. Like your quintessential Greece town with all the alleys and all the things. And then the last island we went to was Milos, which is like maybe heaven. It's so awesome. If you're outdoorsy, especially.
Yeah.
And the two things we loved there, there's a beach there called Sarakaniko. And it is white, all white. You almost feel like you're on the moon. And there's just these white formations and like cliffs and caves. And you can jump out into the ocean that's beautiful and turquoise. You can see like 30 feet down and swim through a little cave and pop up and do it again. It is almost hard to describe. Like you almost have to Google it. I had seen it a couple times on somebody else's Instagram reel. And I was like, one of those spots, like we talked about, will it be as cool? It was so cool. We went back twice. Like we went one night and the waves were nuts. And my husband, of course, still cliff jumped because he's crazy. And the next morning we went back and it was mellow, super beautiful and mellow. So we got to so that again, free, awesome, free.
Ooh, free.
It's free. And it was one of the coolest places we've been anywhere. It was just, didn't look like anywhere else, just bright white. And Milos is known as the White Coast. And I obviously figured that out real quick. The other thing we did that was paid is we rented a boat that could accommodate, I think, 5 people. And we went to a part of Milos that you cannot access without 4-wheel drive or a boat called Kleftikos with a K. And it's caves and water like I've never seen before, like makes Cancun look so. And I figured out, because they don't rent snorkel gear there, which I'm like, you're missing out. I'm such an American. I'm like, you could be like bringing it in if you'd rent snorkel gear.
Yeah, that is a business opportunity.
Yeah, mistake on my part. I didn't bring snorkel gear because I'm like, oh, I'll rent it. No. Sad. But I realized my phone was water safe and I was like, okay.
Oh,
Did like a test one.
Nervously dipped it in.
Okay. And then I got the best footage because it was just like you could see for like 20 yards. Just the most beautiful blue turquoise water.
Wow.
The coolest caves. It was one of the coolest places we've ever been. And then took it back. We did it for, I think, like a 4-hour thing. And it was kind of expensive. I want to say it was like $270 for a half day. But like the other thing, I would pay double. I've never the whole time I was like, oh my gosh, I got to bring my kids here or my siblings. Somebody has to come with us. This is
So that's what I
hard
was
to
going to
explain.
ask, because it seems like from you describing and having to get the flights to the islands, would it be kind of a challenging trip for someone to bring kids? Better for like a couple's getaway or friends getaway, harder for a group?
Yeah, our itinerary for sure would be hard with a group, hard with kids, especially because the room capacities are so tight in Europe. You guys probably know that already.
Yep.
And also, there's just a lot of moving around and repacking and packing. I don't know that I would do that exact same thing if I brought my kids or even a group, but I would for sure do something like, like Athens for a few days and then just either ferry or fly to Milos with my kids or a few people. Like if you kept it 2 or 3 spots, I have to go back. I got to take my kids back. And I don't say that very often.
Yeah.
I've loved a lot of places and I'm like, my kids can take themselves someday. This is beautiful, but Greece, I'm like, ooh, I for sure think I'm going to take them someday. It was just really cool because the food is good too. So it's just really great.
Yes. Talk to us about the food. Tell us about the favorite things that you ate while you were there and also what the prices are like on food when people are planning their food budget.
Yeah. So I was surprised. I felt like it was way cheaper than I anticipated.
Okay.
The last place that we had been was Switzerland, which maybe that's why Switzerland was so expensive, and especially for food and for drinks, and sodas are like €6, But like in comparison, I just was in Florida yesterday, right? And I popped across the street to a gas station to get a Red Bull. Okay. And it was like $4 or $5. And I was like, gosh, there it was €1 for a Red Bull.
Okay.
Like they're just, so like their snacks and convenience stuff were super cheap and you could get a euro, like the sandwich when it was €4, which are very similar words, like a big old stuffed pita for like €4. And it's really cheap if you can find.
And that's even
like
on
sit
the
down.
islands.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I felt like, even like snacks and stuff, like if you were to go and get like an appetizer, I would say it was like maybe 30% cheaper than the US.
Wow.
You can certainly find expensive restaurants. You can check on Open Table or whatever and see how many dollar signs. But even then, like a couple times we went to one with $3 signs. I'm like, okay, it's going to be a nice one. And it was like 15 or 20 bucks a person. And which
You're
is
like,
on the pricier side of, but
no,
it's
that's what
not
Chipotle
$3
costs nowadays.
Thank you.
Sorry.
That's what I said. I was like, that's what I kept telling my husband. I was like, we spend this much at Chick-fil-A. Like these days, like a salad at Chick-fil-A is $10 or $12 by the time you get everything you want.
Yep.
So I felt like it was actually super affordable. And the other thing that's interesting is most of the water in Greece is not potable. So they give you bottled water everywhere you go. The hotel brings it for you. They're constantly restocking it because you're not supposed to drink out of the tap on any of the islands. And they even did it in Athens too, although I think Athens has a little bit better quality. So I was glad to bring like a filtering water bottle. I would say that's one of my tips.
Smart.
That's a great tip.
Because I had no idea. With all the hours that I read, I never came across the fact that Greece doesn't have like drinkable water out of the tap.
No,
and
I wouldn't have known that.
But hotels are really good about it. They're constantly replenishing for free. They bring you water. And, but I was glad when I was out and about that I had like a Brita, those like Brita on the go water bottles.
Mm-hmm.
So that was really the first time actually, because I take it every time in case. I've never felt like I needed it most places I've gone. But this, I was like, oh, okay.
This is now the time. And you didn't get sick. You used it. You drank the water. You were fine. Well, there you go.
Great.
The Brita needs to sponsor you.
Totally. Brita, call me out. But anyway, the food was awesome. So fresh. I came home trying to replicate it. It just isn't the same. Their olive oil is fresh. Their feta is so fresh. I had no idea that Greek salad does not have lettuce. It's just chopped up vegetables and like a block of feta on top. It's literally tomatoes, cucumbers, green peppers, and onions in chunks, like big chunks.
Yum.
And then they put a brick of feta on there, fresh feta, and then olive oil and sometimes seasoning. Sometimes they don't. We had one like every day because they were so good. So I come home, of course, I'm like, I'm on it. I'm going to make this. We're going to close our eyes. We're going to be back in Milos in a second. No,
it's not.
I tried it twice and it does not taste the same. They just have really great, fresh. They really, really prioritize fresh, healthy food most of the time. They do put fries with everything. Like I'm learning most countries do, but their main courses are like just really, really good.
Do you have a ballpark for our listeners of about how many points you use to make this trip happen, and maybe across a
Mm.
couple of things, because I heard you say Hyatt, which I assume you sent over Chase points and Capital One, and I know it was a mix of banks and points, but what are we looking at to make this happen?
That's a good question. I have not added up the points all the way. I could probably give you a ballpark in, let's see, including flights.
Yeah.
I'd say between 5 and 700,000 points probably, and a combination of Capital One, Chase, and I used all my currencies actually, probably just like poking around. Even Citi, I used a little bit. But yeah, I would say 5. I mean, that's just guessing, but just doing like my flights, and that's including business, right? You could do it for much cheaper. I would say at least 250 of that was business class flights because they're in back. But yeah, probably 5 to 7, I would say. I've done the cash add up, and I think I clocked in right around like $31,000 for our trip.
Oh my goodness. I mean, that you did definitely a true luxury trip, kind of at every turn, the dream luxury vacation.
Totally.
Wow.
Totally. I think we spent $1,500, including all like our activities and stuff like that, like our excursions and taxes, because you pay taxes, right?
1,500. I mean,
that's real good.
Like, I want people to wrap their heads around this. Like, easily, as a one-player strategy, you can do 500,000 plus points in a year. With 2 people, you can, in my estimation, easily do 1 million. Like, if you spend a year accumulating, and you can go in a $30,000 vacation and spend $1,500, it kills me that everybody's not doing this. Like, kills me.
I know. And I always tell people you can have a passive strategy, right? Like you can have something basic, like just a Capital One card, for example, which in my mind is like the easiest route. I know everyone else loves Hyatt and I Chase, and I love Chase, partner with them. I love them. But I think if someone wants an uncomplicated earning strategy, Capital One's great because you don't have to think about what you're doing. You get 2 times points on everything. And then, or you can obviously complicate it like I do and go all the things, earn all the things, do all the things because it's fun. But it doesn't have to be always like next level turning of whatever, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. You can accomplish a lot very simply, very simply. I feel like we have so many more questions on our list, but also we're coming up on an hour and we could probably just keep you all day. I'm wondering if we should have you back to kind of dig into some American Airlines stuff. I feel like you have a lot more wisdom to share with our people. Would you want to come back?
Totally. Are you kidding me? I love it. Just like you, I could talk about this all day.
Love it. Are we going to see you at Travelmore?
Are you going?
Oh, yeah. We're so excited to meet you in person.
I know. Me too. I'm so glad.
Yay. Okay, this is going to be so fun. Let's get back on track to wrap it up a little bit. Let's end with, are there any mistakes that you felt that you made in the planning of this that people should avoid, or like your absolute best tips for someone who wants to get to Greece?
Ooh, okay. So maybe we'll start with like what I would consider maybe mistakes or things I could have done a little differently. I think the first thing I wish that I would have read more about is the rental car situation in Greece, because while it turned out okay, there were a couple of companies that were super rigid about like when you dropped off and picked up. And if you didn't, they would call you and like lose their minds and fine you. I didn't understand this because most places I've been, including our own country, like if you put like 10 a.m., they don't care if you come at noon, your flight's delayed, whatever. They like half of the time, these small islands, they're like, they only pop over to the rental car office when they think you're coming in off a ferry to give you a car. And so we got there late one time and I didn't have any service out on the ocean. And so we pop in there and they were like kind of mad because we were like 3 hours late.
Scary.
Right. And it ended up being okay, but I found better companies that I would like. Auto Union, for example, is a great one. I felt like our experience with them was fantastic. I would happily share their like information for people that are going to rent cars. I felt like they were easy to get a hold of. So that's something I wish I would have done. I wish I would have read more about rental cars, what was reputable, who was not. I won't mention, but there's a couple, like one that was just a disaster. So that's something that I didn't know going into it. And, so I highly recommend Googling and reading about like who to rent through and read other people's experiences for sure. Something else I didn't wasn't really prepared for maybe was the airport layouts. Like Istanbul is massive. And a lot of why we ended up staying at the lounge was because we had wasted so much time trying to find how to even get to the Hilton we had booked, because the signage isn't as clear as most airports. Like usually it's like in these red letters, like exit or something that resembles an exit sign.
Yeah.
Where I felt like their signage was really confusing. And it's a massive airport and it's bustling, and there's like, it was just kind of, so we spent way too much time. We probably spent an hour trying to find the right, and there's two different lounges and one's business and one's not. And they're not clearly marked which one is which. And so I wish I would have looked at the layout. So if you're planning on spending time at any international airports, I usually do this. I don't know why I didn't do it this time. I think because I thought like we weren't going to stay there very long. I don't know. But that was a waste. We wasted a good chunk of time, like wandering. And Athens is big too. So I highly recommend, if you're going to a main hub and you're not going to be just like catching a flight, you're not going to stay in the terminal and going to the next thing, to look up the layout. Where are you going? Where do you want to eat? Because you can blow so much time trying to figure out where you're supposed to be.
Yes.
And and if it's especially not English friendly, it can get even more confusing if that's your first language. So other than that, the water thing, like just knowing, like looking up water safety, I wish I would have, I'm glad I happened to have brought my Brita with me, but that would have been like really kind of annoying to be buying water all day long and not knowing that it wasn't water safe. But I think the car rental situation for sure was my bruise. Like it was like definitely, it was a little stressful multiple times, not just once. And like, then the subsequent trips, you're like, oh my gosh, better hurry, because what if they're going to be mad like the last guy, or whatever,
Yeah, that anxiety can haunt you. In fact,
and you don't want to make people, like, we as a culture don't want to like bug people typically.
Yes.
And so anyway. So.
Yes, don't let me forget, after you tell us your best tips, to also get us a few flight anxiety tips. Listeners don't know, but we chatted before we started recording about Angie's flight anxiety and my partner's flight anxiety and how she overcomes that. So I definitely want to wrap up with those tips, but I don't want to derail the original question I asked, which is where your best tip for where someone should start with the trip to Greece and the planning.
Yeah, totally. I can talk about both. Tips for Greece. I think the first question is, do you want to fly business? When I talk to people, I Zoom with people and help them plan their trips as like part of my business. And my first questions typically are about that. Like, do you want to fly business or economy? That will definitely narrow down when you can go, because business classes, they only release a certain amount of seats. So that will narrow down the days you can even fly. Or if you want to fly economy, there's lots of routes to get there. You can, Air France has a killer deal most of the time. Like, even right now, I'm pretty sure out of Dallas, they have a 15,000 point option into Paris, for example.
Yeah.
And they have a transfer bonus going on, which makes it drop down to like 12 or 12,500 points to get there. Yeah. Well, they still allow you to puddle jump another leg on that price. So you can get to Greece right now on Air France for like 12,000 points if you want to, using whatever I can't remember the transfer bonus, American Express maybe. So deciding economy versus business is where I always start. And then I think making sure that from there you figure out how you're going to get to each island, recognizing that it's not super drivable because it's a lot of across ocean travel. I think other than that, knowing that Athens can be done in 2 days was some of the best advice I got. And we had 3 days and it was booked because we did the monasteries. I was so thankful we had that day. But I almost didn't believe people. I'm like, Athens, Greece, what do you mean? And now I get it, because what you're going to see is in a very small, relatively small area. And outside of that, it's just a big city.
Yeah.
And when you're already across the world, like as much as fun as it is to see big cities, you can see a big city anywhere. So that was really great advice, that you really only need 2 days to see Athens.
Awesome. So, that is perfect. Yeah. I think there's so much here for someone who wants to plan this trip, me included. I think today is going to be a Google rabbit hole day for me.
Totally.
But let's do a little bit like maybe your top 3 pieces of advice for flight anxiety, because it's a real thing. And I think people belittle it a lot or laugh it off and don't realize how intense it can be for people whose bodies react, not their mind. Your mind knows it's fine. Your mind knows the statistics. It knows how rare it is for flight mishaps to happen, but your body doesn't know. And I live with somebody like this, and I have so much empathy for that. And so what can people do for themselves or to help their loved ones to be able to do a trip like this that's really far? It's a lot of flying.
Yeah. Yep. So flight anxiety is such a bummer. It is debilitating. And if you like to travel, it altered my, oh, that sounds dramatic to say altered my life, but it really did. Because my husband and I love to travel. We always have. I mentioned to you guys that my dad was a pilot, so I've always flown. So my family, when I developed this anxiety after a really, really turbulent flight, we were coming in on a landing in front of a thunderstorm and just getting thrashed around. It was real. And even then when we landed, I was kind of like, that was rough. I don't know. And my dad had seen us coming in because he was going to pick me up. He was kind of like, how was that? I'm like, terrible. And then I just kind of went on my day. I was coming home from college and I didn't even register that something had changed in my brain. I had no idea. I thought it was a really scary flight, but it was fine. And from then it just increased. It was literal PTSD that like every time I hit turbulence, my heart would race and then it just got progressively worse. So eventually my husband was like booking our flights. We went to Europe in 2018 or 2019, right before the pandemic hit. We went to Portugal and Italy and he had to book our flights for us. I wanted to go. I was like, I'm not missing out. I'm going to go. Just don't tell me about it. Don't tell me that was that bad. Wow. And I hadn't really tried to heal it much. I kind of just would like white knuckle through it and sweat and maybe cry a smidge. Like if the turbulence got enough, I'd start to I would weep a little bit. So embarrassing, which makes it worse, right? My dad's a pilot. He would like draw these diagrams of the wings and why you're like actually not floating. Like you're literally suspended. It's like Jello. And it's still I understood those statistics and I understood the science and it still wouldn't heal that part of my brain that's told me you're unsafe. So the first thing that actually had a big impact for me that kind of walked me towards I'm still working on it for the record. Like given on our flight yesterday, it was super windy out of Panama City Beach and it was rocky and I had my 4 babies with me, right? My husband wasn't there, so I didn't have him to kind of bounce off of or if I have a minute. And I was okay, but it was one of the first times that my heart kind of raced a little in a long time. So it still happens. It creeps in a little bit. But the first thing that really helped me is there's a pilot online. He used to fly for, I believe, Delta. And of course, I can't remember the name of it, so I'll have to Google it. I wish I would have looked this up ahead of time. But he does flight anxiety classes for free. And you can take his course online for free where he walks you through some of the statistics. And I don't know why taking this class helped versus my dad. Yeah. Who told me probably something similar. I don't know.
Isn't that always how children are though, right? Our parents tell us something over and over.
If you're listening. Sorry.
We don't believe it until someone else tells it.
So true.
My dad doesn't know anything. But it was something about his statistics that he brought up that weren't so much about the like aircraft and more about the fact that like, for example, when he went over the fact that there's over 1 million people in the air at any given point. That was helpful for me because I'm like, well, statistically, like that's a lot of people and the odds are like lower for danger. Or he would talk about like what is more likely, like things that are out of this world, like getting struck by lightning on a horse while riding backwards is more likely than, ever having fatalities in a commercial airline jet. And it's been years since I've taken it. So I'm sure he's updated it and made it even better, but that's something I would Google. He's an airline pilot who does flight anxiety courses.
We'll find it and we'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah, it was really helpful. It was kind of like that first, like very brief relief that I felt like, oh, okay, that's interesting. I like that. That information helps me feel a little more safe. And then I had an appointment after I had one of my kids. I had postpartum after I had one of my babies and some decent anxiety that came out of nowhere. I'm not usually an anxious gal, but it was a story for another day. Hard, really hard. So I was talking to my OB and she said, well, have you ever had these anxious feelings otherwise? And so I talked to her about these flying and she was like, oh honey, there's medication for that. Like, why don't you call me next time and we'll get you, like you said, 1 dose of like a low dose of Xanax, a very low, like a quarter per leg and see how it goes. And it legit changed my life like that. But while it changed my life because I had a peaceful flight, it didn't put me to sleep because Xanax works really well when you have real panic. If you have real panic going on, it actually just regulates you, right? It calms you to normal instead of putting you to sleep. Yes. So I don't fall asleep on it because I have actual panic going on. But what it healed was I was able to have now dozens and dozens and dozens of flights that were peacefully, safely landed. And I could remember, in fact, the first time I flew, I was with probably that baby, I'm sure. I flew up for my brother's graduation to Montana, which was the same leg that I had taken that was so crazy. So I get a little more anxious when I fly there because the weather is terribly unpredictable. And I, for the first time, cried a little out of peace. I was like, oh my gosh, I remember loving flying. I remember putting my hoodie on in college because I had flight benefits, and I would fly home, put in my AirPod or whatever they had back in the day, my iPod, and loving it and just popping around going to see my family. Ain't no thing. And so I remember just weeping like, oh my gosh, I forgot how beautiful this is and what a rad miracle flight is. And like, from there now I would take like a little bit lower dose, and I still take it. But in Greece, when I flew to Santorini, I was like, you know what? Today's the day. And I didn't take medicine. It was the first time in 10 years, I think. And it was great.
Oh,
and
I'm going to cry.
Like, no, really. Like, because I travel so much, but I think it's debilitating for people. Like you're talking about your person. It really can affect your relationships. It can affect all kinds of things. And it was so healing. And now look at me. I book my own flights. I book all my family's flights. You couldn't have paid me to book them 3 years ago, you know? So between taking these anxiety courses and then like taking medication to help my body remember what it's like to feel safe on a jet was legitimately life-changing for my lifestyle. It was really great. And it's helpful because then I can be a mom instead of like, don't talk to me, I'm having a heart, or whatever. I can be like, hey, look at this, look at that. And so that noise means, because I'm the daughter of a pilot, I know what all these noises mean, and I can teach them about it. And I can teach them about landing gear instead of being like, we're landing. And so it just is really, anyway, apparently it's something I can soapbox about, but it was very, very helpful. So
thank you so much for sharing that. You just like filled me with hope, for him.
No, there is hope. There is hope.
Yeah.
There is hope.
11 years is a long time to not go on a plane with the person you love.
Totally. And I mean, I'm not out here slinging medication, but for me, it regulated me to be able to get on that jet. And now I think every other time I might not even have to do that, but also if you have to, it's okay. I don't take Xanax in my regular life. Right. So
it's okay.
I always tell my husband, like, whoever invented Xanax, even though it has been hard for some people, it's been a miracle for me.
Yeah.
And so.
Wow. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome.
I have goosebumps.
We're so glad that you joined us and shared with us about your trip to Greece and shared such hope for those who have loved ones or they themselves have flight anxiety that still want to see the world and still want to travel, but just are so, don't think that it's possible for them because of their anxieties. I feel like you really did give everybody hope that they too can get over it. And you certainly pushed through and are still seeing the world and taking your family to magical places. So thank you for spending your time joining us, especially after you just got back last night from a trip with your kids. I'm sure you are exhausted and ready for a rest.
Yes, you guys are so welcome. It was so fun to chat. Happy to come back anytime.
Oh, we'd love to have you back. And before we let you go, tell everybody where they can find you and your offerings. And we usually ask for a shout out, but you gave us one earlier. So just remind us of her name as well. And then we'll let you get out of here.
Yeah. So Holly is her name, and her Instagram is mostly free travel. That's who I think is like just an unsung Points and Miles gal.
Love it.
She's like a genius, but also just like low key, no drama. She's just really great. My Instagram account is Angie's Travel Tips, and that's primarily where I soapbox all day long about Points and Miles and how to do it. And on the side from there, I meet on Zoom with people about their strategies or helping them plan vacations. So that's kind of my shtick.
Yay. We're going to link you up. We're going to link her up. So everybody needs to go find you. Your account is so helpful. And I'm sure after listening to you talk about Greece, everybody's going to be clamoring to your page because this was just so helpful. So much good stuff in here. And we can't wait to see you in like less than a month.
I love meeting people in person.
Me too.
It's so fun.
Thank you so much for being here today.
You're so welcome. Nice to meet you guys.
If you enjoyed this show today, please consider writing us a review or clicking 5 stars wherever you listen to your podcasts. And please subscribe and follow along so that you never miss an episode.
You can follow the podcast on Instagram or YouTube at Wonderland on Points Podcast. You can find me on Instagram at Family Travel for the Win with the number 4.
And you can find me on Instagram at Points to Wonderland.
If you're thinking about getting a new travel rewards credit card, consider using the links in our show notes. Using our links helps to support us and keep our podcast going so we can provide you with all the latest tips and tricks when it comes to traveling on points.
And if you aren't sure which card is right for you, shoot us an email at wonderlandonpoints@gmail.com, and we would be happy to walk you through a free card consultation. That's also a great place to send us all of your comments and questions. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you here next time.